Okay, today's video will be about identifying your recovery tanks, whether it's your recovery or your virgin or your recycled that is clean. This is for the automotive techs who are thinking of going mobile, or even if they're a radiator shop and they do multiple refrigerants. Usually you only do 2, maybe 3. Nowadays for automotive, we have the YF. We have the 134. These are my recycled or my end remnants out of my leftover 134 virgin tanks. So at the end of the month, I'll grab all my virgin 134s that have been emptied, and they will go on the processing machine and be recovered out of the tanks, because you usually always have an ounce or 2 left at every tank. And so you'll have 30 or 40 of them by the end of the month. These are my old R12s. This is all cleaned refrigerant, and so I mostly use this stuff for old classic cars. When people go to classic car shows in Reno or Nevada, or some of the classic cars, they're looking for guys who still can do R12. So you might go through 10 to 30 pounds at one auto club meet, and so you'll always need those. Nowadays I only carry one little 10-pounder of R12 with me in my vehicle. I no longer need a 30-pound container of R12. As of YF, nowadays, this is now the most common refrigerant in all cars being produced on the road right now. And since I do a lot of body shops, I now have to carry 2 of these with me. And I'm usually going through about 30, not quite 40 pounds yet a week, but I'm clearing out nearly a 30-pounder a week, and sometimes just tapping into the next can. And so this is mandatory: 1 30-pounder of 1234 YF in your vehicle. R134, we're just coming into springtime, so right now, as you get to tour buses, limousines, tour passenger vans, usually have the conversions of 2 AC systems. So usually the rear AC system on some of the like airporter vans and passenger vans that have been converted to 15 people passenger vehicles, they'll carry anywhere from 5 as high as 9 pounds, but it's usually 5 to 7 pounds. So when you're really busy and you get called out to a tour place, they might line up 3 or 4 of them for you. So in a whole day, you better carry 60 pounds on you. Recovery, always have, when you're real busy, have 2 recovery tanks on you, because you never know, by the end of the day before, you could almost be filled on one, and if you don't have a second one and you've left your office or you've left your warehouse and you go out to do a recovery and one is already full, you don't have that second one, you'll be in a world of hurt wasting time driving back for another one. So always carry 2 recoveries on you. Over here, I'm doing I'm painting the recoveries for more identification. So these right here, this is a 134, so this will get a blue stripe around it. Just like you see those recoveries right over there with the blue stripe, they have the distinctive gray with yellow, but I added the blue stripe. So not just reading the R134, visually, I have a visual clue that it's R134. For the R12 tank, which is not painted yet, I believe. Can't remember. This is the R12 tank. So this will have the yellow, the gray, and it'll just have a white stripe. And then one of these are going to be this one right here. This one says YF on it. This is a brand new tank, and I'm getting to the point where I now have to carry 2 YF 30-pounders in my vehicle, because they recover so much YF. One is no longer enough. And actually, as in about a month and a half ago, in my business where I'm at in my locality in San Francisco, I'm now doing more R1234 YF than I'm doing 134 on new vehicles. And so I'm now almost doing more YF than 134. It's starting to go the other way. So probably within the next few years, instead of seeing a whole bunch of 134 cans, I'll be all YF and only a few 134s. That's which way my business is starting to shift right now. I think this one's going to be R22 for my recovered R22. Then I have another tank for brand new or recycled R22. This one is for R410, so this will be for my recycled R410. And I was going through the process. Some of these are filled with recovery, and so you always have a refrigerant identifier. And if you ever get any funny numbers on there with different gases or too high a percentage of air, always have two of these as a backup. If you don't believe the reading on one or the battery goes dead, you never want to recover refrigerant out of a vehicle without testing it, because imagine you're recovering R1234. So you got a tank that's worth like $3,000. You take a tank worth $3,000, and if that car was at, say, let's use the example, a cheap, shady body shop who likes to be cheap, and they don't want to pay the $150 per pound of R1234, then they might try to stick R134. 6 months later, that car gets in an accident a second time, goes to another body shop. Say I'm called in and I do not test the refrigerant, and I pull in, say, 2 or 3 pounds of R134 and mix it with my 1234, I just destroyed $3,000 loss out of my pocket of R1234. So always use one of these, and if you get contaminated refrigerant, inform the customer or inform the shop that whatever shop last serviced their vehicle stuck contaminated refrigerant inside their vehicle. That is what this is good for, and you could give a printout. What else? These, I have 2 of them here, and this is at my northern San Francisco location right now, so I don't have many here right here. I have this times 3 at 3 different locations. The other location is way on the south side of San Francisco, just when you leave San Francisco as you head into Brisbane and South San Francisco and San Bruno location. And then the other location is just has easy access to get onto the Bay Bridge. And so you keep yourself divided up. Heavy traffic in the city, you don't have to drive far. And that's about it. Oh, and what I was doing here is, as you see, the recovery unit is here. The recovery unit's here for R134, of course, because some of these recycle cylinders are filled with R134, and they all came out of cars, and many of them were very high percentage of air, 3%, 4%, 7%. So as you recycle and fill your tanks up with R134 on your recycle cylinders, you will get a high percentage of air. So if you test them, your recycle tanks, you might have 5, 6, 7, 8, 10% air mixed in as a contaminant with your refrigerant. So you have to test how high the percentage of air to see how much air. Then you go through the recycling process, an automated or a manual one, and you end up with clean, dry, air-free, contaminated-free in like the blue cans there. And if I hook this up to my recycled stuff, I got 0% air. Not the supposedly allowable 2% air, not 1%, not 1/10%. 0. There is no reason to ever have even 1/10% air mixed in with your refrigerant. Same with the R12, the R1234, the R410, the R22, the R12 over here. When I started out 27 years ago, all my tanks were 50 pounders because I was a lot stronger and better in shape, and I gotta admit, when the years go by, picking up full 50 pounders is no longer considered exercise, it's now considered agony. So now I only use the 134s. These big ones just came off of one single job. a Panasonic unit where I had to recover something like 70 pounds of refrigerant. It was 250s, and I think there was some extra and some littler guys. But that was for R410. While we're on the subject of air conditioning and refrigerant, for you automotive guys, or actually automotive guys make very excellent technicians who shift over to HVAC, commercial refrigeration, residential or light commercial air conditioning. If you're already an automotive mechanic and you're tired of being an automotive mechanic, but you're pretty good at air conditioning and you have 5 to 10 years of skills and education on diagnosing drivability, you have to be good at electrical. Drivability diagnostics on computers and sensors. You know how to back probe sensors. You know how to back probe a TPS and do a sweep on it looking for the bad spots in it. You know how to tap into a MAP, manifold air pressure sensor, a barrel sensor, and you know how to take the readings off of it manually. Not the dumb way using a scanner, but you actually know how to read and go and test each individual sensor manually. You will be a great technician going into the HVAC industry because they're starving for technicians. So if you guys decide to go to a school, I'll show you some of the books that my son and I've had. Here's one. This is used at Laney College, and so this is the 18th edition of Modern Refrigeration. This is one of 100 different books that are out on air conditioning. This is a current one that they use at the school. Let's see, the Arduino products are great. It's going to be for you guys who really want to get into board level repair or make your own boards and controllers. It's really good to learn Arduino and Raspberry Pi. These are just awesome books. You can literally remove a circuit board out of an HVAC unit, build your own circuit board using Arduino. If you had an old unit that they don't make the board, and say, let's use this for example. Well, this wouldn't be good. This would be a good example of board level repair when you have something like this right here, which is like a 15 volt regulator. And this is off a board, and they tell you, oh, these aren't made anymore. They're back in such and such country overseas. It's going to take 10 to 6 weeks to order a new one. But you're on a food processing plant, or say a hotel or motel, and every one of their rooms in a motel. Imagine this came off a VFR unit and it's taking care of, say, 60 rooms. So that VFR unit is connected to 60 different rooms, cannot be rented because maybe they don't have heat in the winter or cooling during the summer, just because of a board like this. So if you test it and find out it's just the power controls, this little section where my thumb is for power. It develops the 15 volts necessary to power the rest of the board. So you can actually go in there and actually replace the little regulator that my thumb is touching right there and do the repair, charge a very healthy sum of money because you have the knowledge to do that. And even though this is only like a $400 board, $600 board, whatever it is, for that little part right there, and your knowledge, and somebody else doesn't have that knowledge, and you replace that little regulator, that only costs like $3. Now you're a hotel and you have, say, 60 rooms cannot be rented at $200 to $500 a room. You think they'd be willing to pay $1,000 for soldering out that little itty bitty, and let's get right here, right the tip of my fingernail right there on my thumb, right there, those 3 pins on that white thing, you just solder those out, replaced it, $1,000. Or Mr. Customer, do you want to wait 6 weeks for one to come from the slow boat from China? So learn your electronics. I would highly recommend taking some electronics classes. This is one of the classes that I've taken. These are from back in, these are the newer ones. And here's another good one. Or that was just a different edition. Yeah, I think that was a different edition of the same book. For you guys doing HVAC, Many times you go out to do repairs or you're testing superheat or subcooling, you have contaminated refrigerant and you don't know, is it contaminated refrigerant? What did you know, Yang Kang Cook from Kathmandu come in here, and he was the budget guy who came in for $100, and he took recovered gas from 3 or 4 of his other buildings, put them all into one thing, and he thinks it might be all R22 or R410. And he has air mixed in it, moisture mixed in it, and somebody may have put in Blue On or one of the other blend refrigerants. So he has a cocktail, and he believes it's one thing, but there's no way for him to test because he doesn't own a refrigerant identifier. So he doesn't know this is not pure R22. Then he goes to another building, and they do this, and they pump it in and charge the customer money, and it kind of works. It works good enough for the temperature of the day it was there because it was just low. Then it still has problems, and the customer calls someone else. They call you or me in. And you are now going to try to diagnose a system that might have a glide refrigerant in it, a higher pressure or lower pressure. It's throwing the superheat, the subcooling off, and you're trying to diagnose this. You cannot diagnose this. And you might go into replacing parts, or you get into guessing. You throw a refrigerant identifier, and bingo, it tells you have contaminated R22, and you can't believe how many times I came across contaminated R22 here in the city. So that's the good thing about having a refrigerant identifier. Many guys are putting in and just dropping in, they call drop-ins, snap refrigerants, alternative refrigerants, and they believe you can drop in that refrigerant right on top of the R22. Well, now it's neither this refrigerant nor that refrigerant, it's a bad blend of both. And so that's where a refrigerant identifier comes in good. For you guys in HVAC, free classes, PG&E, let's get that there, PG&E, free classes. This is paid by you, the taxpayers, and everybody who pays PG&E. You can take free classes on duct design, psychrometrics, on energy efficiency and energy auditing. They have like a list of like 50 different classes, and they're for free. So take an opportunity to go to these free classes. These are an excellent, and they're free, other than you have to take time off work. Fujitsu, you want to do the VRFs. Go down and go get training. Don't guess. Don't try to go by superheat and subcooling or by a temperature out of gauge by filling one that's low, because you will cause problems. And that is about it. Oh, there's one more thing. When you are working on VRFs, Panasonic, Daikin, anything like that, you will have the checkers for the modules for actually, you don't superheat, you don't subcool, you hook up to a laptop, you have specified software, and you have one of the testers that you can actually go in and it reads the temperature sensors. Okay, so use this one for example, Panasonic. And if it was a large VRF, here's the Panasonic module. You wouldn't believe, but this little thing is $800. Oops. And you hook into the board. It has a couple temperature sensors out here. It has temperature sensors outside. You have the ambient temperature. You have the refrigerant temperature. You have the air temperature in and out. You set it into test mode. And this is all through software using your computer, your laptop, and a interface like this. And it'll set it into a test mode. Now Daikin does this, Fujitsu, most all the manufacturers, good manufacturers, have a test mode. You don't just turn it up and believe that it's going to give you enough so you can kind of squirt in some refrigerant. You can actually go into test mode and you can read the opening of the expansion valve. You know, say it's 450 is the max, 0 is the minimum, and you're supposed to be hovering somewhere around 250 at a certain outdoor ambient temperature, indoor temperature. It sets the fan speeds to a specific fan speed that it knows with its software that I'm supposed to flow only this much air using these sensors in here and the outdoor unit, and it sets the outdoor fan speed to move a certain quantity of air of CFM over the coil dependent on the ambient temperature using software, and then it will give you the superheat and subcooling and the temperature drop and your delta across your coils. That is the only correct way to actually read, not just turn it on, put your hand on it, or try to hook up gauges to it and take some temperature and pressure. So that's a short note on working on little mini spits or larger VFRs or depends what manufacturer you're talking to. They switch the letters around a little bit. VRF, VFRs. Yeah, two different manufacturers do a little something different with their wording. Color coding, the way I do it again. So this is my clean YF, and I use a white tank because the tanks are white, and when you buy a brand new tank, it has a red stripe, kind of the pinkish red stripe, so I throw one on there. On the YF here, this one, I'll be yellow up here, it'll be gray down here, and it'll have a white stripe and then a small red stripe, and that'll be a visual indicator on top of all the lettering and wording I will have all over it saying 1234 YF, so you don't mix your tanks up. Sometimes you might be in a hurry, talking to someone on the phone, going to grab tanks. I have like 12 tanks in my vehicle, so you could get in a hurry, so you have everything clearly marked. And I have been doing it like this for 27 years now, and you just won't believe how much contaminated gas I've come across in 27 years. Then as your tanks age out, they have a 5-year life on them, so once they're tested, they have a stamp on the side. And let's see, for you guys in automotive, you usually don't know this, but they have a test by date, and test every 5 years. And so as a tank gets old, you take it down to, and what you usually do is, if you have several tanks, you use one for your contaminated gas. So I have 2 designated contaminated gas tanks, and I fill them up, and once they're filled with contaminated gas, you take them down and exchange them, and you get a brand new one. For your clean tanks, as they age out and they get over 5 years old, so I'll take one of my old tanks out and take it down and exchange it for a new one, and they'll charge you like $40, $20, depending where you are. Different parts of the country are different to swap out a tank. And so you can take your contaminated refrigerant or your clean, if you had R134 and it was a little contaminated, take it in there, get a brand new fresh clean tank, and then you could use that as your new recovery cylinder. Many ways of doing it. This is one that hasn't been cleaned or marked or anything. This is my dedicated, you could say, waste gas removal tank. And so this one actually also has a lot of waste oil in it. So after doing a lot of recoveries, you will end up with a lot of oil, sometimes a gallon or more, in each one of your recovery tanks. And what you do, instead of worrying about taking it down and disposing of it, you transfer all the oil into one tank, and you can have some refrigerant in it, and then you just take that tank in for exchange and let the refrigerant recycler deal with the waste oil, because that's what they're there for, and that's why you have to pay that $20 or $40 or more to take in and exchange a tank. When you're buying these tanks, like all my new tanks, when I buy the brand new ones, they're about between around, in our area, around 120 bucks a piece or so. You could find them as low as maybe $90 online somewhere. Usually 120, 140 is a common big city price for them. And so I think whatever you see here, it's times 3, because there's 2 other locations that have the exact same setup. One setup is mostly all R410 and R22 for commercial HVAC. This area and this section here is mostly automotive with just a little bit of commercial HVAC, and the other areas a mixture of HVAC and automotive. But I thought I'd just do a little quick video on how to organize and keep your gases separate if you really do a lot of gas. I don't do poundage, I do tonnage when I recycle. Oh, another thing, end of the week, grab all your dead cylinders, say put them in your warehouse, store them, like my 134s. At the end of the month you'll have like 30 of them, recover them all. 12s, very little anymore. YFs, the little 10-pound tanks, I'll say have 3-4 every week, and then at the end of the month recover what little 1 ounce is left in every 10-pound tank and put it in and recycle it. And that's it on this little segment about if you wanted to know what does it take to be a small business owner, a one-man show, and you're very busy. You will have like 30-45 tanks and you'll be rotating them weekly or monthly. That's it. Until next time, I will see you guys later.